So just hours ago, this was reported. We know a little bit more than we used to, but I'll have to be honest, we don't know too much more. So what has happened? Well, Puffy was apparently arrested on Monday in a hotel. So Diddy did come to New York, presumably preparing for some of these trials, but he was arrested. I don't know if he consented to that. That was planned out. From the statement of his lawyer, Puffy, P. Diddy, whatever we're going to call him, Diddy was not aware of this, so he seemed to be a little surprised. So why was he arrested? Well, we don't know yet. The charges have been sealed. It's not clear why. And at 11:30, again, I happen to live on the East Coast, so they mean East Coast time in the US. So apologies if you're UK, France, or elsewhere. It's a different time zone, so we have to wait. Here in the US, apparently at 11:30, the government will reveal what exactly is the issue. And this is something that's being missed by some of these commentaries. I don't think they're trying to mislead people. You might think, due to that explosive 2016 tape that shows clearly that Puffy, again, this is YouTube, I have to use very careful language, but being violent in the hotel regarding Ventura, right, an ex-girlfriend, people think automatically that's the issue, or these other lawsuits. It may not be. They are related, I think. They're interrelated, but they're not really about those suits, because a lot of those suits are civil cases. They are charging, in some cases, criminal acts. However, I don't think that is the issue. Why? Well, those cases dealing with those criminal acts tend to be state crimes, right? In other words, if this was that, it would be New York versus Puffy, etc., etc. It would be California versus Puffy, Florida versus Puffy, because again, that's where some of these crimes took place. However, this appears to be the government. So it might be, quote, formally New York versus P. Diddy, but really it's the federal government. So he's being charged by the government with doing something wrong. And this was noted in the other articles, but I don't think people emphasize this. This is Homeland Security. So it's Homeland Security who raided his house and apparently confiscated a couple of his phones. So they've been monitoring the situation for a while. And if they have access to his phones, it may have to do with certain other issues. So at this point, that's the fact. He has been arrested and he is waiting to be before a judge. Again, whether he will even be released, we don't know. He may be put in jail until the trial gets underway. It's a lot of question marks, but the grand jury was confident enough that they had enough that he could be arrested. And that is very significant. Although he's spoken to the police and the government, he's not been arrested formally, but now he has. Now, again, this is not technically anything new. If you know Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, and his record, decades ago, he got involved in that situation in a club while he was dating Jennifer Lopez, and that ended their relationship, and he went on trial there, and he was arrested. So it's nothing new exactly where he has been arrested, but even back then, it didn't last too long. I'd have to go back to double check things, a few things on that trial, but we all know he basically got off. He did have to pay a few things because some people were badly injured, and some of these victims have come forward more recently. So he did pay a price, but at the end of the day, he didn't really get damaged too much. Although one of his associates, Shine, it's a very interesting case with him, he actually had to be exiled from the U.S., so he went to jail, and later he was deported.
Sean Diddy Combs has been arrested in New York City, and NBC News reports citing a person with
everyone,
knowledge
even if you don't like Shine, agrees that
he was arrested in the lobby of a hotel, according to a representative. Diddy's attorney, Mark Agnifilo.
Diddy, so that's insane, but that is the reality. So where are we now with Puffy? Well, it's a little curious. Here, we're going to have to do some speculation, so I forewarn, this is my opinion, it is speculation, we just don't know what would be the crime that would get the government really riled up, because again, P. Diddy has been doing things for decades. Now we know for sure a lot of his associates, friends, and other people knew about these activities, they're coming forward, or they're staying silent, but he's definitely been a criminal for decades, but what would be the crime that finally motivated the government to act? That, I don't exactly know, but I would suspect, and I know this is not popular given that, right, the focus is on what he's done to his ex-lovers, these ex-girlfriends, and apparently in some cases ex-boyfriends, which is kind of shocking because that's not his public image, but we'll put that aside for the moment. I honestly think it may be a drug-related charge. Why? Well, the issue may be trafficking, right? Now, trafficking can come in different forms, but that's what Homeland Security is focused on, right? Are threats to security. And I will just note that I'm not a big fan of Homeland Security. I find the whole idea of this kind of very Hitler-like agency monitoring people not a fan of, but exceptions to the rule. Maybe this is legitimate use of their powers, but I'm a little skeptical. In any case, it would have to be a security-related issue. And what is security-related? Well, drug dealing. Now, granted, we know that Puffy takes drugs. He's bought drugs. If it was just drugs, this would be a state issue. So why is the federal government involved? Well, it could be. And it sounds crazy when you think about it, because although I don't like Puffy, and he obviously is a bad person, what level of drug dealing are we talking about? I mean, is he like a drug kingpin? Is that what happened? It just sounds crazy. But it could be a more technical thing, because one of the people they spoke with, and he was arrested, was his alleged mule, right? This was months ago. So they caught someone who allegedly transports, whatever we're going to call it, the substances to Puffy. And this is apparently a very habitual, regular, systemic thing. So it could be that aspect, right? It's not technically the taking of the drugs or even consuming the drugs, but that he has a kind of network to transport the drugs from foreign locations into the U.S. And that may be the reason that he's been arrested. So I would suspect it's on the basis of a drug-related charge. It may have something to do with these other cases, but they're sort of just extra on top. Now, this makes it sound like I'm defending Puffy. No, when you think about it, this makes the situation really, really bad. So technically, he is facing this charge with the federal government, right? This is the USA. This is not an individual state. And he has the individual lawsuits, right? I already covered this in another video, but the most recent lawsuit is with Dawn from Diddy Kane, and she's a past protege and is making a lot of accusations about his violence and a lot of things he did against her and other people. So at the end of the day, at this point, and again, you lose count, Diddy might be facing 8 separate cases. A lot of these are civil, they're not criminal. So he's facing a mix of criminal cases and civil cases with the government, the state, these individual people, and perhaps other parties. So when you think it through, it's actually mind-blowingly how many lawsuits he's facing. He's facing potentially not even 8, but potentially even more lawsuits in the future. So it's just crazy how much trouble he's in. Now, granted, he is very, very rich. This is not Danny Masterson. So he's got wealth far beyond Danny Masterson. But even I would be stunned, because there's actually a recent case. And again, I want to do more double checking, because this is a headline, but you don't believe everything you read. Apparently, has a judgment worth $100 million against him by another person who's accused him. However, Puffy, I think this is an effective response. This person is not credible. They just do these kind of lawsuits all the time. However, the judgment is there. It may be dismissed, but this is the amount of money that potentially he will have to pay to these individuals. 20, 30, 40, 50 million. And after a while, if it's, again, that many people, 9, 10, 12 people, that will add up, even for Puff Daddy. Now, will he actually have to pay? Well, probably not. You know, we have OJ as a president, and OJ did not pay anyone from the Goldman family, as far as I know. They tried to, but he would not pay them. So it could be a situation that, yeah, Puffy on paper will have to pay some amount of money to these victims, but again, he's Puff Daddy. He just doesn't follow the law. However, this federal case is why it's much more critical, because it's hard to see how he's going to dodge this. So at the end of the day, he will be in a lot of trials for a lot of years in the future. But at this point, we don't know the exact charge, but it's not looking too good for Mr. Sean Combs, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, whatever we're going to call him.